and gentlemen, and welcome to the Aunt Deb Show. It's Wednesday at 7 p.m., and as usual, we have another amazing guest. Tonight, we have Mr. Brendan Brown. He's out of Charleston, South Carolina. He is a 18-year-old high school student, and I'll let him tell you all about himself. So, Brendan, welcome to the Aunt Deb Show.
Well, Aunt Deb, thank you for letting me be on this show. I just want to tell everybody, well, like Mr. Deb say, I'm a motivational speaker. I'm a 18-year-old two-time author. I'm also a podcast, excuse me, I'm also a podcast host and also a student and student leader at my school, which is Fort Chester High School, and also a wonderful friend to others.
Oh,
But I just wanted to get to the point here to tell you thank you for letting me come on the show once again for everything. And any questions you have for me to answer before I just speak on anything?
yes. I know you will tell us, you have it planned to tell us all about it, but I just want to reiterate that you are an influencer. You are a podcast host. You're an author, as you spoke of two books, correct?
Yes,
Two
ma'am.
books that you'll tell us about here shortly.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
you're also a follower of Christ, which I
Yes, ma'am.
love. I absolutely love that. So, Brendan, go ahead and tell us more about yourself and what it is you do.
Okay. So the first thing I want to say here before I get to anything is the podcast. I was gonna talk about the book, but I'm gonna say the podcast here. I'll be real with you.
Okay.
I ain't gonna speak about this yet. So the
Okay.
development part, right, ma'am.
I didn't say anything.
So the development part right here. This is my logo. This will get to. It'll make sense once I explain that. The development pod was a podcast that started out by the inspiration of my friend named Jeremiah Patterson. I met him before COVID back in November 2019 at my middle school, which was River Oaks Middle. He was doing podcasting. I was like, well, what is podcasting? I want to figure it out. I asked him. He said, you know what YouTube is? I said, yeah. He said, it's basically that, but audio. And I was like, wow. So around February, I created my social media page at Instagram. I didn't really use that much. That was the first time I ever used social media because I never had any form of social media before, besides Google Plus, which at the time that wasn't really social media. But get
Yeah.
back to the point here on the timeline, I was still hesitant. Even around late November, I was still hesitant about starting a podcast. I liked the idea of it, but I just didn't want to copy what he was doing because he was doing politics. I said, man, I don't want to copy nothing because being raised in a small-minded house. Because no offense to my relatives or anything like that. Not saying that they're small-minded, but they have some great ideas, but some intentions could be bad. And when you are raised in a household that's very small-minded with people that don't really think as big, and it's not in a negative way. They're wonderful people. They support what I do, but when they don't have a big idea like you do, because maybe sometimes God may have a purpose for you to be the light or the special one in that family. So he I believe he allowed me to meet Jeremiah by planting that seed in Jeremiah to meet me to start this because that was the spark of everything. Because when I was hesitant, it took me all the way till March when COVID started back in 2020 to start a podcast. The first thing I did is I grabbed my phone. Now I'll be funny with you. That's a Google Pixel 8. At the time, I had a Google Pixel 3,
Oh,
but
wow.
when I had that Google Pixel 3, I used that phone to record my audio. I used the app he told me about. I think it was I didn't know at the time what it was. I said, let me see. I think it's called Anchor. I used Anchor. The first thing I talked about was Batman Arkham, a video game, because at the time I was just more about video games theories, and then eventually as I started doing podcasting, I was just all over the place in my niche. I just didn't have a niche exactly. I was just saying everything just to make content. Even when civil rights was going on, I was very passionate about that at the time with George Floyd and everything. So I made a bunch of episodes dedicated to George Floyd, African American, like civil rights. And
Mhm.
eventually, around later down that year, I met Alan Levi Simmons. Alan Levi Simmons played a big role with the book. This will make sense here. So I saw his podcast. It's called The Purpose Pod. He's a host and of it. Currently, he's not really doing a podcast as he's actively doing because I know he has family businesses and he got his children and everything. He got a lot of family business and his job, of course, he got to do at IBM as
Mhm.
a engineer. But to
Mhm.
get the point here, he really had a lot of purposeful content. I watched his stuff Around late 2020, it inspired me, excuse me, to change up my niche. That was just a little spark. I was just thinking, I don't think I need to change it. But then when 2021 came in January, I saw his cousin, Nige Simmons, hosted a No Job podcast. His podcast was
Mhm.
about, finding your purpose and quitting that 9 to 5 job, leaving that 9 to 5 job, and having a fulfilling life. I
Mhm.
looked at that. I said, man, his video quality looks good. Didn't have that much subscribers now, only like 30, 40 subscribers.
Uh-huh.
And I thought about it. I say, I need to do self improvement because I've seen Alan Levi did that. I've seen his cousin Nige did that. And their content is amazing. And I love that content because ever since I've been 10 years old, I've always consumed content that related to self improvement from Jose Zinka to Alpha M to even
Uh-huh.
now, well, not now, but at the time when he was still in his prime, Jordan Green as a YouTuber was self improvement.
Mhm.
But once I saw him, and then I saw Gary Vee content, if you know who Gary Vee is, in May of 2021, that gave me the knock in to know, okay, this is time for me to do self improvement for real. So I
Mhm.
started doing self improvement throughout 2021. Made a lot of audio content about it, different content, different stuff. And then around the summer of 2021, I was just thinking of this idea, and I said, "Man, I need to do this." I've been thinking about it the whole year. Even when I saw Nige's content, I said, "I need to do a video podcast." So I thought about it around late 2021. I pre-record everything, the video episodes, everything like that. Once I did all that, then next year, around January 2022, I launched a video podcast. And now Brendan Brown's collections of facts and theories was a video podcast. And also, I actually skipped somewhere in the timeline. Before 2022 in January and late 2021 around December, I was interviewed by Alan Levi Simmons. This is where the book
Oh,
comes in. Sorry for losing track on that. This is where the
oh,
books
you're
come in.
fine.
So I met Alan Levi in August of 2020, but the following year, around that time, but maybe a little lower in December, he had me
Mhm.
as a guest, talk about me, representing the school, not the school, representing myself as a motivation speaker, self improvement guy. He told me, Brendan, you do all this. You got a podcast, you're a motivation speaker, you talk about positive content. But the thing you need the most to help you be successful is a book. Have a book. Because when you have a book, you can go to schools, go to places, go anywhere and speak about it and also have something that's documented, in a book. I'm just paraphrasing what he's saying because excuse me, not everything that not everything that I'm saying right here is what he said. I'm just paraphrasing here, but he was
Mhm.
basically saying that we have a book that's basically like um, a little big. I forgot the word they use when they use for jobs. Oh man, the brain fog. But it's a resume. It's a great resume of showing that you're very professional in your field.
Yeah.
And I thought about that. I said, you know what? I am going to try to write a book. After I had the interview with him, instantly the next day, I started saying, "Let me write a book." I write my book. I didn't tell nobody nothing. I was just doing that all over the place. And then eventually around mid 2022, that's when I finished my first book, which is Do You Need Any Help? But we'll get to that soon. But back to the
Okay.
timeline with the podcast, though. 2022 was a successful year. I always will say that was a blessing of a year because that got me out there. I started
Mhm.
doing a lot of video content. I wasn't an audio guy no more. It wasn't about my voice, about seeing me. I had some haters at the beginning. Now that I'm growing, I don't have as much haters, but that's still part of life. You're going to have me either way. So even if I'm growing, I'm probably going to have one
Absolutely.
eventually. But
Yeah.
around late 2022, that was my first year going back in person to school. And instantly, when I went back in person to school, I was a junior at the time, people were saying, like, oh, Mr. Influencer guy. I was like, what? How do you know me? And they were like, social media. I'm like, what? I'm actually growing. And, it was shocking because all that hard work I put in for almost at the
Mhm.
time, 2 years, is now coming to fruition.
Yes.
And so they're like, I see you on TikTok, I see you on Instagram, I see you on YouTube. I saw that little podcast that you got. I said, oh, thank you. And it was awesome. And
That's
so
all.
actually, yes, ma'am, thank you. Actually, also around 2022, I was motivated to write a second book because
Okay.
I want to write books back to back. So around June of 2022, I wrote my second book and I finished. finished doing that around late of last year, or either early this year. I finished that second book,
Mhm.
and then like I say, around late or mid 2022, I decided I wanted to change the podcast name because I said Brendan Brown's Collection of Facts and Theories is not really a good name to fit with the podcast. That's more of like a different type of stuff like theories and stuff.
Mhm.
Stuff I say is not really theories and facts. I realize that stuff I say is truth, but through my
Mhm.
perspective, but also through my faith and experiences through Christ Jesus, and I don't want to be too, you know, religion or anything like that, but I wanted to be feel like it's, Christ inspired, but also reaching the people who may not be believers. And if they
Mhm.
are not believers, they can become believers. But
Mhm.
like I say, that inspiration didn't really come up until this year, but the inspiration kind of sparkled or started in 23 when I changed it up by saying it's the development pod. I didn't call it Brendan Brown's Collection of Facts Theories. I said in 2023 it's gonna be called the development pod.
Mhm.
I changed it. It's the development pod. I made business cards out of it. I also made a journal out of it. I think. Yeah, I made new business cards. So my first business cards were the original podcast name, but I made new business cards with development pod. And people, I loved it. People, I say that's actually great, and even my friend Jeremiah say that's better because a lot of people used to say a lot that my real name, that my original podcast name was too long, and it was. To say it's called Brendan Brown's Collection of Facts Theories, that's a long name for a podcast.
Yeah.
Development Pod is really simple, and I'll give this credit. Alan Levi Simmons inspired me with that because his podcast was called the Purpose Pod. So I said, let me call it the Development Pod because it's a podcast to help you develop. Because when a seed is planted, it has to eventually grow to be the top. It starts from a pod to a beautiful plant or a tree. And even with
That's right.
your life, you have to go in, go through the process, go through the transformation, then boom, you're born. You're born as a new
That's
person. And even through Christ, you're born as a new person once you give up your old life. See how it all
yeah.
reflects? So it reflects with the
Yeah.
people who may not believe in Christ, but it reflects with the people who do. And
Yeah.
that's why I say that's why I thank God so much because this stuff I'm doing is only through Him and not
Yeah.
me. It's through Him alone. I decrease as He increase in my life. And
That's right.
around 2023, that was not really a great year for me for the podcast because at the time my friend was dealing with something. I had another friend who was dealing with suicide. So I was helping
Oh,
him out a little bit too. And thank God now he's changed his life and he has gotten baptized in December 2023.
that's
Um,
awesome.
so he's now given his life completely to Christ. The other one, he hasn't given his life to Christ yet, but as it's recording, he's trying to start up and do better. And I thank God for him. And then, like I say, I was just helping them out around late 2023. I started publishing this book right here. This book right here. Do you need any help? This was the first book I worked on when I was a freshman and finished it around junior year. No, not around junior year.
Okay.
Excuse me. Around no, I finished it around junior, but I published it around senior year. This book right here. So,
Okay.
do you need any help? Basically, talks about the full synopsis. Do you need any help? Basically, like, do you need help to help you find the inner you? This book is to help you find the inner you. This book is to help you figure out what do I need to improve on because I've been so down in life. I need to figure out how to get back up. And it has references of scripture, of course, in there. It also talks about
Mhm.
advice. Like I say, it's for both people who are not Christian or who are Christian. And
Mhm.
you're gonna really find some self discovery or self growth in this book, and it'll help you get a mindset shift as you read this book. Now, the second book, speaking of that, you also get a free bookmark if you're here with me in person. If you live here in South Carolina, where I'm at, local area of Charleston, you get a free, um, copy of
Okay.
bookmark if you want to order one.
Okay.
But and sometimes it can be exclusive to people who want it shipped out to them. I can have that exclusive depending. But this book here, Brilliant Ambitions, I just recently launched this book in March 21st of 2024. This book
Okay.
here talked about how to find the purpose basically. Like this book talks about how to find the you. This book talks about how to find your purpose because you already found yourself. Now you got to find your purpose. But
Find
also
your
when you
purpose.
find your purpose, you have to have, like it says, the skills to build that drive for success. The skills, where did it come from? The skills come from the adversity, like I said in that book. It comes from you believing. It comes from you also surrounding yourself around the right people. Same thing that first book talked about, but it just expands it even more and even more deeper. And if you're
Mm,
probably saying, well, if it expands it, why should I buy the second book if it's the same thing? No, it's not the same thing. It's uniquely different, but it's just that that second one has a lot more juice for you to really improve in your life and find that passion on what you're trying to do. Which leads
okay.
us to right now, where I'm at in 2024. I'm an experienced podcaster, an experienced motivational speaker. I thank God for my leadership teacher when I was in leadership class, helping me throughout building my motivational speaking skills. Because at one time I was a real rookie at not speaking or being a little nervous or quiet. Now I'm not that. I consider myself both introvert and extrovert. I'm a two-time author. I also won first place for digital video production.
Oh, wow.
I have the trophy. I had to grab that trophy. If you want me to grab that, because that's like I said,
Hmm.
that's a skill. I'll grab that trophy. Once
Okay.
once I finish, it's also
Okay.
it's a skill I do because I do this a lot on my phone with video editing. That's how I get my podcast out here, and and I thank God for winning that because I I um I won third place in state last year for the FBLA conference. But in
Oh,
2024,
wow.
I won South Carolina State in first place for the digital video production. And in districts last year, I
Okay.
won second place. So it's kind of ironic. I won second, third, first. I thought I wasn't going to win first
Uh-huh.
this year, but I won first. Last year, I thought I was going to win first, but I didn't win first. So it's kind of like funny because I thought the opposite and I got the opposite of what I got. So,
Yeah. Uh-huh.
I'm just really blessed and grateful that I was able to get that first place because I really worked hard for that. So
Well,
yeah.
congratulations.
Thank you, ma'am. But that's my whole resume, my whole timeline, my whole schedule of how I became
Amazing.
who I am,
Amazing.
and I just truly thank God. I just want to grab the trophy quickly and
Okay.
just
Okay. Go ahead.
quick little intermission.
Okay. All right. Man, he's amazing. I just loved it. Two-time author. And I believe this is a series, two of two. I'll have to ask him when he comes back. But the books again was Do You Need Any Help? And the second book was called Brilliant Ambitions. And we'll talk to him a little bit more about how you guys can go and order those if you like. Um, he's so amazing. I'm so honored to have him on my show.
Yes, ma'am.
And
My
he's back.
apologies for that. I should have been had these trophies out, but
Oh, you're
this
fine.
is
You're fine.
this is
There's no
my
rules
state,
on the Aunt Deb show.
ma'am.
There's no rules on my show. We're just having a conversation.
Yes, ma'am. Well, for me, that's just how I am. When you be professional, you just learn that. I mean, I'm real too, but to a certain extent, I
You
just a
are.
professional guy too. Yes, ma'am. But this is my
Yeah,
state trophy right here. This is what I won in 2023 for districts,
for
and then for this
district.
one right here, I've won state. I won. Yeah, that was district. I've won state right
Mhm.
here in third place in 2023. So for South Carolina
Wow.
State District, I won third place. So,
Oh,
and then
wow.
also this year in 2024, I've won first place. So grateful. Just
Congratulations on all of those.
thank
That's
you, thank you, thank you.
amazing.
Yes, ma'am.
So, as a motivational speaker, Brendan, what do you see that we need more of in helping our youth to prosper in self development? When you go out
Well,
and speak,
ma'am. Hmm.
when you go out and
Well, I
speak, you
just
speak to youth. Do you speak to youth and adults, or do you just speak to youth?
I speak to youth and young adults. That's what I'll answer your
Young
question on.
adults?
When you
Okay.
talk about specifically adults, young adults, I mean, older adults can listen too, but sometimes older adults most likely are more established. So it's basically us. We're the ones having to learn. Like I say, it just depends on the topic I'm discussing with the
Mm-hmm.
person I am. But to answer your question, primarily it would be youth and the young adults.
Okay. And so, what do you see that we need more of to help the youth prosper in self development? Do you see when you go out and speak to these youth? Do you see is there a lot of self confidence? Do they lack self confidence? What do you see most?
Well, what I see is that yes, they do lack self confidence, but I think is to what I think is that too is that sometimes it can be peer pressure, because when you follow the crowd, you just do anything for anybody. That's why I noticed a lot, especially at my high school. Going to Fort Chester for almost well, not 3 years, basically 2 years since 2022. Cause I was virtual
Hmm.
my first 2 years. Going there these last 2 years, there have been wonderful people, but there's also been people who just follow the crowd. There's also been
Hmm.
people who just do anything just to do it for pleasure.
Yeah.
And there needs to be discipline. At the end of the day, we do live in a time where it's anything can happen now. But I just personally
Right.
believe that like you shouldn't do everything just because it's cool or because it feels good or because you see someone else do it. You should do something because it help you. And
Hmm.
specifically as a Christian too, God wants you to do what is in His will for you to do. So
Hmm.
that's why all I can say to answer your question on that.
Okay. And then you're big on financial literacy, correct?
I used to be big on financial literacy. I'm not big on it now. Not saying that
You're
I'm not
not.
an expert at it, but I am good at that because of course I'm a businessman. I also want to be successful financially. So I'll just say I'm not as good as how I used to be with that, but I do know some things of financial literacy.
So do you implement that when you speak to the youth? Do
Oh
you
yeah, yes
talk
ma'am,
about
yes ma'am. Like basic financial literacy, yes, yes, yes. Like if you're like on my book, I also mentioned this book right here. It's important to carry at least $20 on your pocket because things are expensive now. Or like for example, I'll just tell somebody like hey, you say you want to get that new shoe. Why get that new shoe if you're trying to save up to get something important? Something like that. Yeah, basic like that. And then also
hmm
when it comes to like apartments and stuff like that, I do study those, so I do understand that. The taxes a little bit, I understand that. I did took class on that, but to actually do it, I just had to re-understand that again because I know that that's a lot, to consume depending on how much income you're making. But yeah, I give tips, but I can't.
Okay. Okay. Wow, you do a lot, Brandon. You are amazing. Just
Yes, ma'am.
amazing. I saw you on Sergeant, I can't think of his whole name. You were
Sergeant
just
Ford.
Sergeant Ford. Yes, that's
Yes,
where I
ma'am.
saw you. And I was so impressed. Um,
Thank you.
you are amazing. You're a good
Yes,
example.
yes,
I
ma'am.
like how you tell us how you weren't as confident in the beginning and you built your confidence. And then once you did, it was like, hey, I got this. And
Yep.
so that's what other youth need to see.
Hmm.
So, if you would give us a little bit of advice, or the youth of advice on how to keep going and not to give up.
Well, you read my mind there because I was about to tell you that. I was going to say, can we speak on that topic about my backstory with that? So I always go by this saying here before I even say this. I always go by this saying. I watch this YouTuber say this, and it's so true because I've not even heard this YouTuber say this. I've seen a lot of people say this. When you talk with somebody, you don't talk at them, you talk with them. You be a storyteller. As a motivational speaker, as a motivational speaker, excuse me, I talk a little fast there. You got to have a story to tell. You got to talk with
Yes,
them. You got to relate with them, sympathize with them. And so
yes.
I'm going to sympathize with this audience right here and what I want to tell you is that when I first started, I wasn't really as I wasn't really as confident, but I was confident. I'll say it was like very
Hmm.
a mixed review because at the time when I first started podcasting, I asked my mother. I said before I even did my first episode, I said, "You think I should do a podcast?" She said, "No, you ain't doing a podcast. You ain't doing a podcast. Not in a mean way, but in a way like I don't know." But I started. Look where it got me now. But
Yeah.
I'm not talking about now. I'm gonna talk about how it was during transition. I
Hmm.
kept doing it. I kept making income from it. And my grandmother, my mother, they were like, "Oh, podcasting. That's good. You're doing podcasting, but you may need a real job. You might need to do a real job. Podcasting may not get you nowhere. Podcasting will not get you nowhere. It may not get you nowhere. It will not get you nowhere." You know, my aunt was also saying, "Podcasting will not get you nowhere. Podcasting will not get you nowhere. The same old negative stuff, negative stuff, negative stuff." And it's kind of funny because when I look back at it from back then to now, it's something how when they told me things, they didn't understand it. And
Mm-hmm.
now it's the other way around because at one point they weren't supportive. Now they are supportive. Now they want
Okay.
pictures of me. Now they want everything with me. And it's not in a
Mm-hmm.
bandwagonish way. It could be to a certain extent, but I think it's
Yeah.
mostly because it's a human thing. You felt guilt. And so when you feel that, that can hurt you. You know, there were some nights, I'll be real with this, I was sad. Some nights I may have just cried because I had to deal with relatives not supporting what I do. And at the
Mm-hmm.
time it was COVID, so the only person I talked to was my friend Jeremiah. Then when he had went back to Texas in 2021, it went worse because I couldn't get to speak with him because he was already living his life in Texas. So you know when
Mm-hmm.
you're out there in the big cities, you're more busy, more preoccupied. So
Yeah.
I had no one to really talk to. I had a cousin who lived in California who I talked to, but at the time he was being very, I don't know if anyone knows this word, shisty. Shisty means very slick or cunning. Because at
Mm-hmm.
the time I first met him, we were talking real good. Then he started acting on and off. Now he's doing way better now. He's more mature now. He's still struggling a little bit, but he's more mature now. And I thank God for him.
Mm-hmm.
We doing better in our relationship as cousins. But at the time too, he
Okay.
was not really talking as much. He was supportive of what I did, but he wasn't really
Uh-huh.
talking that much. Only talked to me when he needed me. So it was a lot. I went through, rejection. I also went through, I would say in a way, not lack of confidence, but more of like isolation. COVID
Uh-huh.
played a role with that, but also me too, because like I wasn't able to go out, and I had people I talked to online, network with online. That helped me a little bit doing live streams with Zachary Ford. If you know who that guy is, another motivational speaker, wonderful guy. I did some
Mm-hmm.
collaborations with other content creators, chat them, and did live stream whatever it was we did to collaborate. It was awesome. That did a little bit of work, but only for a moment. And I thank God because throughout all this, I continue to have that faith through Christ. And my faith, I believe, is stronger than how it was back then. But back then, my faith was just like a lighter or a light. It's just like, or like, let me use this for example. I want to like how this light
Yeah.
barely turn. It can barely turn on. Like not like this, but barely. That's how my faith was. But as I
Yeah.
grew and go through the transition and the
Uh-huh.
hardship, it built me to becoming who I became now. Now, when people see me, why should I worry? And I made a video on this. I'm gonna be funny with you here, but I'm a two-time author. I'm a
That's
motivational
right.
speaker. I'm a
That's
I'm
right.
a, I'm a good friend to my buddies. I'm a good son to my parents. I'm a good grandson to my grandparents. I'm a good student to my teachers. What should I have to worry about? And the fact that I talk about all my experiences through the book, and back to that part about the adversity, these stuff I see in this book and that other book is true. It's not what
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to just think of doing. Not trying to prove a point to nobody. I'm just saying it's not what I'm thinking of doing or trying to do a little sale. I'm saying this
Mm-hmm.
because this is my life and it may help somebody else. Because sometimes
Yeah.
when you say your experiences, it can help somebody else too.
Mm-hmm.
There's this person, I'm not going to say his name, but I know him. He said that you can't use your experiences to reach people to Christ. And I'm not saying that he necessarily said that now. I'm just paraphrasing. I could be wrong there, but I know he did
Mm-hmm.
say that your experiences cannot cannot help them. The word can help them. Yes, the word can help them. But when you have experiences you've gone through with using the inspiration of the Bible, because if it connects with the Bible, then it will help them out. Because what I
Mm-hmm.
went through was lack of confidence, adversity. What the Bible say? You gotta have faith by sight. I mean, excuse me. You gotta have the faith not by sight, but you gotta have it thinking. Oh man,
Yeah.
man, 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 man. Oh man, the scripture ain't coming to my brain there. I'm sorry for that, but you gotta believe in faith and not by sight. I think that's what it is. You believe in faith and not by sight. That's what you gotta believe in.
Mm-hmm.
And back then I believed in the faith. I didn't believe in the sight. I believe in the faith.
Mm-hmm.
And excuse me, I just really want to find that scripture for you. I'm so
Okay, go
sorry.
ahead.
I just want to
Go
find
ahead.
that
Please
scripture.
do.
Assume what
Please
I'm saying.
do.
I like to go strictly by the Bible. I've never been that person. I was always raised on that. And that's in Philippians
Mm-hmm.
5:7. For we live by faith and not by sight. Yes. Because without faith, it is
Mm-hmm.
impossible to please God. That's what it
Yeah.
says in Hebrews 11. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I had the faith without seeing it. I had the works with believing in the faith. And look what God did now. That's why I thank
Yes.
God every day. That's why when I put these books in, when I put my podcast in, when I record my video, when I be on interviews, I will always mention Jesus. If you get mad, oh
That's
well. If
right.
you don't like it, push away.
Not me.
But let me tell you this, man, or woman who's watching this. I don't hate you. I don't dislike you. All I want you to do is improve in your life. And if you can put Christ in there too, that's even more wonderful. Because at the end of the day, I always tell people all the time, even in my school, every day I be telling them, I'm not the light you should look at. I have the light, yes, but I'm not the light. I'm just a source by Christ. And
Hmm.
Christ used me to help you grow. But to get back on track here, what I was saying earlier about what you were saying about the story, how to help advice. Yes, I went through all that, and even though I was lonely, eventually through 2023, I met my friend Micah Murray. I thank God for him because with him, he was dealing with isolation too, not having that much friends to talk to. I didn't either, because I did too a little bit because it was my first year back in person at school, especially at high school because I wasn't there my first 2 years. So like the only people
Hmm.
who knew me was people from middle school or people who saw me on the internet. But it took me a while to build some new friends, everything like that. I had friends, of course, that I chat with, acquaintances at the time, but now they're friends. And Micah Murray, he was a good, genuine, real friend. And at the
Hmm.
time when he was lonely, he had no one to talk to. I used to talk with him. I used to. Me and him talk together. Me and him both also. What was it? Read the what was it? Not the daily bread. We read beside the still water book. That's what we read.
Hmm.
Beside the still water
Hmm.
book. And sometimes I'll just give him scriptures to read with him. And I used to encourage him. He used to encourage me too because at the end of the day, I thank God that me and him had met because with me and him meeting, it allowed him to lower his depression because there were nights, man, where he used to call, used to cry. He used to say, "Man, Brendan, oh man." Some nights he used to be in the dark. That's how bad it was. He was in the house, dark, a dark room. Even in the daytime, a dark room. The blinds closed. He don't want nobody to come in. That's how bad his depression is. And let me tell you this is a young man dealing with autism now. Autism. Let me tell you this.
Hmm.
People think this boy has autism. I mean, people think this boy can't do nothing because he has autism. Excuse me. But he has 37 college offers. And if I'm not mistaken, I think he has 40 college offers now. And he has good grades. And he's
Hmm.
excellent. This young
Yeah.
man is a blessing. 40 colleges want, well, I can't count my finger. 40 colleges want that boy. And they some of them always talk bad about him, use him. They like to take advantage of him because, he has autism. But, he's on social media
Hmm.
too, like me. He's a big social media star. People like to take,
Okay.
advantage of him thinking, like, oh, he's that social media guy, this and that. Or they like to use him for the advantage. And
Hmm.
people don't realize this young man is special. And God can continue to bless him. And God
Yeah.
can continue to allow those people who treat him wrong to
Right.
to feel convicted for what they did.
Hmm.
And but to carry back onto the story in 2023, yeah, I met him around February. We were talking through June or July. That's when I think he had told me around that time that he thought that it was time for him to give his life to Christ, I believe. And around July, that's when he decided that he told me in December he was going to be baptized. And December 9th, if I'm mistaken, if that's the date, he was, because I know it was a few days before Christmas, he was
Hmm.
baptized.
Oh,
Gave his life
okay.
to Christ around the end of 2023. Now look at him now in
Oh,
2024. Don't even have depression. He called me
oh.
out there, go celebrate me. He said, "Yo, Brandon, man, it's been 1 year since I've been done with depression." He said, "It's such a blessing, man." He said, "I thank God for you, man." I said, "I thank God for you too." And I thank God for that story because what it taught me through there is you gotta have patience. You know what I mean? Because I, well, in a way, I wasn't really like fast paced. Nothing. I had the patience, but with someone else, that should help them have patience. Everybody's not gonna think the same as you, but you gotta take time to learn their pace. Some people they like to,
Yeah.
oh, yeah. Even when it comes to like different things. Maybe
Yeah.
if it even comes to the word sometime, we got some Christians that can be very stuck in their ways or in old habits. Be like, oh, you don't do it this way. You doing this. You challenging me. This. You can't act like that. The Bible says,
Hmm.
love and kindness have I drawn thee. You have to have love and kindness, the
Yes.
compassion. And
Yes.
that's what I had. I had the compassion because I could have rejected him. I could have said,
Yeah.
I could have been a person who had a bunch of 10 friends who went out every
Yeah.
day. I could have rejected him and be like,
Yeah.
I'll call you later. But because God allowed me to go through that isolation, and He went through that isolation, but through me, He had a true friend. Look at it now. Now He got other people He talked to as well. I got other people I talked to as well. But through all that, me and him still consider ourselves like brothers, man, because that's how close we are. We're like brothers, man. And I respect him because
That's awesome.
I thank God for me meeting him because that was his testimony. But that also, I believe, was my assignment that God placed me in. I believe God placed me in there to help him so that his soul can be secure for the kingdom of Christ.
Yeah.
And now look at it. He's blessed.
Yeah.
He's blessed and highly
That's
favored.
awesome.
People say that little song, but that's true. He's blessed and highly favored. So
Mhm.
I hope throughout all this, I was just saying to y'all, to the audience who's looking at this, the youth, that I went through isolation, I went through self self reflection in a positive and in a negative way. I went through having to have my faith be increased by reading that Bible and believing in God. And I went through
Mhm.
patience and guiding somebody to Christ. I hope that all inspires you to know you're never too late to do anything. It's never too late to do nothing. If you start now, it's already good. If you get away from negative people, it's already good. If you pursue your goal that you want to do, it's already good. And the main thing is, if you just ask God for what He wants you to do in His will for Him, that's already W all by itself.
That's right, Brandon. I love it. Oh my
Yes,
goodness.
ma'am. Thank you.
I could talk to you forever. I
Yes,
could talk
ma'am.
to you
That's how it
forever.
be. That's how it be
Oh,
with some people.
that.
Yes,
Well,
ma'am.
thank you again
Yes,
so
ma'am.
much for coming by the Out Dev show and talking to us.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
enjoyed you. Like I said, I could talk to you forever.
Yes, ma'am.
Before we go, I need you to give the audience your Instagram and your YouTube handles so that they can follow you.
Okay, so I just want everybody to know that my Instagram is at influencerb, INFL underscore UENCERB, influencerb. That's how it is spelled. I also got another Instagram account that's called at host is Brendan Brown. It has my yellow logo, my yellow and blue logo for the Development Pod. I also have my YouTube channel, which is called the Development Pod, and I have another YouTube channel that's called Brendan Brown by itself, and it has like a little AI picture of me with like an astronaut, I think, little thing, yellow. And then I'm on Twitter as well. It's at Brendan Podcast One. I think that's what it's called. I have a Threads. I'm also on. That's all the platforms I know. TikTok. I'm on TikTok as well, but I know with TikTok being banned, that's gonna be a lot. But as long as TikTok's still here, I'm on TikTok. So just look for Influencer B, same way it's spelled, and look for the development pod on there. If you look for the development pod on any part of the any social media, just the development pod and Brendan Brown, just type that little stuff in. Make sure hashtags for that. That's how you'll find me. But overall, the main thing you need to find is the Instagram and the YouTube because that's the most active ones I be on. And then for my books, just want you to know that both of these are on Amazon if you want them. And also, if you want to get a bookmark, you have to be where I'm at locally in North Charleston, South Carolina. Or if you are lucky, or I may allow some people get this exclusively with my signature, but it depends on how I can do it because I only want this to be
Okay.
limited to people in person, not the people
Okay.
out of where I'm at. So,
Okay. Well,
yep.
maybe, hopefully, one day I'll meet you in person.
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
That'll be
ma'am.
one of my. I'll put that on one of my list here
Yes,
to
ma'am. That's one of my
come.
goals actually to meet people all around the world. I want to meet you, Sergeant Ford, and some other people that I know that I've collab with and network with. Not just on podcasting, but just in everything. Every space
Right.
I've been in.
Okay. Well, you're amazing. I'll tell you.
Thank you.
Have you come to Atlanta before?
Oh, yes, ma'am. I've been there when I was younger for the Coca-Cola company. I've been there before just to
Okay.
visit that.
Okay. Well, if
Yes,
you
ma'am.
ever see yourself headed this way, let me know.
Yes,
And if
ma'am.
I'm headed your way, I'll let you know.
Yes, ma'am.
And we can meet up.
Yes,
But
ma'am.
man, you're awesome. Keep being great.
Thank
Keep
you.
being that follower of Christ. Keep doing what you're doing. I'm a fan, and I'm going to be watching you. Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
All right. Thank you again. Hope you have a great evening. It was awesome talking to you. I'm honored.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
ladies and gentlemen, you make sure you come back next Wednesday at 7 p.m. for another amazing guest. And you also keep being great. See you next time.
Goodbye.
It's the Idea Show. It's the Idea Show.